Hello, everybody. I don't know where you're tuning in from or whether you're watching live or later on when we rerun this, but welcome to the show. My name is Shirley Whing Chow, and this is the podcast from Zero to Shero. We feature extraordinary stories and tools of everyday women reinventing their lives, businesses, and relationships. And as your host, my name is Shirley, and I am the Hong Kong chairlady of this amazing group of leaders and change makers called the G100. And we are a group of action oriented think tank and thought leaders and visionaries who are trying to champion the SDG goal of number 5, which is the gender equality, and also SDG 17, the partnership for the goals. And we are promoters of equality, peace, and prosperity for all. And I am a global speaker and a voice of confidence joy coach. And I've been very fortunate to be part of the G100 group. And I also have been teaching some law of attraction courses and wrote about resilience in several books. So today I am extremely, extremely delighted, if not extraordinarily excited about the guest that I'm going to bring on. I met her not too long ago, actually, in Dubai, about a month ago. And just from the way she speaks, you can tell this person is formidable. And so I'm not going to let any of you wait any further. So let me bring on this amazing person called Tina. Hello, Tina.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction. And before we start, I really have to say I admire this beautiful work you're all doing at the G100. It is so, so, so important for the women of the world, but also, for the whole globe, because we've been talking about that. It is so important to bring the qualities of female leadership to the forefront, and not just for women, but also for men. They can embody this kind of leadership too. And I love what you're doing. And you know, I just wanted to applaud you.
Thank you so very much. And Dominique, thank you so much for tuning in. Yes, yes, yes. Can you tell us where you're tuning in from? That would be great. Now, I heard a little applause. Was that from one of your children?
Yeah, that was actually my bigger son, my 11-year-old son. I don't know if he was actually applauding for me or for himself.
All right, we have all the applause from our hearts, and I just want to thank you one more time. And before we jump onto we have a little kind of like a prompt. We have 5 questions for all our guests, right? Because the reason why I started this show is because I am a baby entrepreneur. My little entrepreneurship is only about 2 years old. And whether it is for a new marriage or maybe a new business or a new job or maybe even moving around, because if you know anything about Hong Kong, right, going back to 2019, because of all the things that happened, a lot of people have been moving out. Like when I did, when I was much younger, moving to another country, starting a new life. So whatever the situation is, right, or maybe even just dumping our old beliefs and old self-sabotaging stories, we have to start from zero a lot of times. So what I would like to do is for someone like you to share the amazing journey that you've gone through and all the crazy great tools that you use to make sure you always sail through life like it's a breeze. So let's jump. But maybe one thing before we start. Do you remember that dinner that we shared in Dubai?
Of course I do. Of course I do. I'll never forget that because it was really nice, wasn't it? It was a beautiful restaurant and we had beautiful guests. And hi, Dominique. So nice you're there.
Yes,
Hello.
you joining. Yes.
She has been on the health conference. I met her during lunch. It's so funny. Yeah, she's been on the health conference and
Awesome.
yeah, she is. So I'm so happy you're here, Dominique. But yeah, of course I remember because this is kind of where we met, right?
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with our first question. Um, Tell us a little bit about yourself as a child. What were you like?
When I was really little, like 3 years old, I was always standing in front door yelling at the top of my lungs to my parents, I want to be in freedom. I want to be in freedom. And my parents were like, well, she's kind of strange girl. And when no one was watching me, I was just leaving the house without telling no one and visiting my grandmother with no shoes on. I had kind of my own agenda as a child, but I was very, looking back, I was a very vulnerable and sensitive child, and I was always longing for more love. But it was another kind of love that my parents could give me. They were caring parents, and they did, of course, like every parent, they did their best. They did everything they can, but it wasn't really what I needed. I have needed more emotional nourishment. I would have needed more encouragement. But it is like it is. It was like it was. And it kind of made me who I am, because I was reaching out to something beyond. I was like, okay, obviously here on earth, it, things are different, and I didn't get that divine love. So I was reaching out for divine love, and I was like, there has to be something more. And I was seeing angels and all these kinds of things. And I come from a very small village, like very small, like 500 people living there, so everyone knew everyone. And my grandparents, they had a kind of, in Germany, it's called Tante Emma Laden. It's a very small shop where you can buy everything. And it was like, the newspaper was going to that shop and talking to my grandmother and hear what she has to tell about everything and everyone in that village. So all eyes were kind of on me. And of course, everyone was going to church. Everyone in that village was Catholic. And I was very little. I was like 5 years old, and I was having nothing of what the priest was saying. I didn't believe anything. I was like, he's talking about God, this being this old judgmental man with a long white beard that is having judgment day all day, every day. I was like, mm-mm, that's not God. That's not what I see. That's not what I feel, what the divine is. So this kind of made me, like an outcast in a way, because I really got it that everyone else in that village, including my parents and my brother, everyone else was different. So the message that I got was, you're different, you're different, you're different. And that feeling different wasn't necessarily something that I really liked, because, of course, it is so human that you want to belong, right? You just want to be like everyone else, and you want to belong to that family, you want to belong to that village, to your school, to your kindergarten. Later on, you want to belong, with the people you study or you are at work. But, that didn't really happen for me.
Yeah. So how long did that last? I mean, you obviously starting at a very young age. When you said you saw angels, did your parents just flip out? Or teachers or friends?
My parents were quite cool with everything, and they still are. They were quite open. So I was lucky that they were not be as conservative as the rest of the village. My parents were like hippie parents, and they just, they were quite open, and they got me a certain amount of freedom. But they were just like, oh yeah, she has a vivid fantasy. It wasn't, today it is kind of you know, people have a broader knowledge that there are sensitive children or highly sensitive children or empathetic children or children that are more guided by their intuition. It's more wider known. But in the
Right.
70s, I was born in the 70s. It was just, I had a vivid fantasy and this was it. Full stop. This was it. But they didn't try to talk me out of it. But
Right.
they it didn't went further than I told the story and they were like, oh yeah, she's good at telling stories, and this was it.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe you were going to be a writer when you grew up. That kind of right idea. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
interpretation. So what happened in high school when you got old?
I was, I was good at school, but not because I liked school, but it was kind of, everyone was expecting that I would be good at school. So I didn't want to disappoint anyone. So it wasn't that much of an effort for me. So it was okay. But, inside, I was still trying to be like everyone else. I was observing, how they talk, what they were talking about, what they're wearing, where they went to have a holiday, what they were doing in their, spare time. And I was just, you know, bumping along, but I still, I still that feeling that they are different or I am different, that just stayed with me. And the more I tried to fit in, the worse it got. They really started, picking on me and saying I was arrogant, and I I didn't feel arrogant at all. It was like me trying to protecting myself and showing off like a cool face because I didn't want to be hurt. But of course, at that time, I couldn't even verbalize it. It was just that longing, that need to be a part of them, to be like them. And it didn't work, of course.
Yeah, in a way, that's kind of typical, right? Of that year 12 to year 18 adolescence kind of peer pressure and peer influence. Yeah. And
Mhm.
so you said you didn't quite enjoy studying when we talked, but you just went along because you were a good girl and it was expected of you. Yeah. So
Mhm.
what happened to us like, the 11th grade, 12th grade? Did you find out more like your core hobbies or if there was anything that you're particularly gifted?
Mhm. Um, I liked languages. I like German, I like English, I like French, I like Spanish. I like the way of, the art of using words. I like writing. I liked theater as well. I like watching people on stage, but I also enjoyed being on stage myself. But I had no idea what I wanted to do after school. And of course, you get asked all the time. I don't know how it is in Hong Kong, but in Germany, you're going to any, family birthday, whatever, and everyone's always asking, and what are you going to do after you finish school? And I was like, no idea. I was I was so looking up to my best friend. She knew at 5th grade she's going to be a lawyer, and she became a lawyer. She was like that. She had that focus and she knew what she wanted, and I was like all over the place. I didn't have any idea. I knew I liked fashion. I liked photography a lot because my father was taking pictures himself, like black and white pictures. He had a kind of lab in the basement of our house, and he could develop the pictures for himself, and he told me how to do it. I love that. But everyone then was telling me, this is not very clever because you're not going to earn much money by being a photographer. And everyone was talking me out of this, but I loved it. I actually loved it very much. And after school, when I started to study because I wanted to please my parents again, um, I was working at a black and white portrait photographer, and she was amazing, and I loved what she did. I loved every picture. I cut them, and put them in leporellos for the customers, and I loved that. And I'm still, if I'm talking about it now, I'm still like, wow, I should have done this. Maybe I should do it now, actually. Yeah.
Mm. Well, so how did the transition out? Now you do have to go to college, and you did go to college, right?
I tried, actually. When I don't know what exactly in Germany we have this. You go like 13 years, and then you make a degree that is called Abitur, and with the Abitur you could go to university. So this kind of qualifies you to go to university. And actually, I tried to go to university 2 times, but you know, failing forward. And I tried it for all the wrong reasons. I mean, I thought it's the right reason because, I wanted to be successful and I wanted to learn and I wanted to please my parents, but I was sitting there and I was like, I
Yeah.
was
So
wasting my
in,
time.
in that process, right, after trying it, and you just knew that it wasn't going to work out.
Hmm.
I remember when I was in college, there was at some point that I thought I was going to be a piano major, but obviously my gift was in actually coaching others and being an accompanist, which that means taking, the back seats instead of being in the forefront, right? Being the prima donna. And when I went through my graduation recital, I didn't get a very top grade, and I thought I wasn't going to be a pianist, and I thought my life was over. So when you found out that it didn't quite work out the way you thought it would, right? But you already had kind of like an early warning sign way back when. You knew that it was going to be a little unusual or tougher for you to lay out your path. Were you panicky, or how did you find your way?
When I tried to study the first time and it didn't happen, like after a year, and my parents were like, okay, if you don't stay at university, you have to take care of your life for yourself. You have to finance yourself and you have to see, we're going to support you as long as you learn something. I was like, okay, let's see. What do I like? I like photography and I like being in fashion. So, and then I remembered, like, just right before the Abitur, just like before we graduated, there was kind of an information day at school. And they had a special kind of, 3-year education that was especially for people with Abitur. And that, kind of didn't want to go to university, but have a higher education in the fashion sector. So I thought, this just, it was like when this little intuition voice speaks to you, it was really like in my head. I didn't even remember the name. So I was calling that agency for work. It's how it's called in Germany. And I was like, I don't know what it is. I can just describe what it is. And he was like, oh, yeah. And he knew the term and he was sending me everything. And I actually wrote one application. One. Like, I had all these friends writing applications like crazy, like 10, 50, 100 applications. I wrote one. And 2 weeks later, they were calling me in my holidays and were like, oh, can you please come and just like introduce yourself? And we'd really like to meet you. And I was applying for the year after that because I thought, oh, now I take a year off and just travel around and have a nice time. And then I start with that education. But it didn't work that way. They were calling me in. They were like, you really hurry because you can start this year. And I was like, what? This year? I mean, I'm on holiday and I wanted to take a year off. And they were like, yeah, really? But why don't you come? And then they were offering me just like in the city I wanted, the department I wanted, because I wanted to be in the designers department. And, it was very rare that you get a space in the designers department. So it was like, take it or leave it. And of course, I took the chance and I did it. And I graduated as the best in that year. But still, I was always like, this is, it was good to have kind of a basis and learn everything about the business and management and marketing and working in human resources. You have to do kind of everything in that training. So this was a very good basis, but it wasn't making me happy at all. Not at all.
Hmm. Okay, so now you were very intuitive, right, from the beginning. So as these little obstacles kept perpetuating, right, in your career path, what was the next step for you at that moment? Did you really try to take time off again or what?
I tried to study again. I still wasn't over the being the good girl, pleasing my parents thing. I was still at it. So I tried again. I didn't succeed. I was bored again. I still had this feeling, this is not it for me. So, and then I was like, okay, the universe gonna bring me the next step that's going to show me where to go. And it did. It did. I was walking through the streets. I was kind of drawn to at that time, I mean, today you have concept stores everywhere. At that time, no one even knew what a concept store was, but it was the first concept store I've ever seen. And it was a gay guy leading that store. He has thrown glitter all over the place. So he got me, of course, because it was night. Everything was sparkling. And I was like, whoa, what is that? And I was standing in front of the windows. It was just so beautiful. You had all these hats from Christian Dior and beautiful, jewelry. It was so beautiful. I didn't even know what it was. I was like, and then I saw he was a hairstylist. So I made an appointment to have my hair cut. And when I was there having my hair cut, he was like, you are awesome. Do you want to be my managing director? I really need someone who brings kind of, order into the business and helps me with the marketing and helps me with all the people because I just want to cut hair. And I was like, huh, why not? And
Yeah.
it was wonderful. I was there for 1 year. We're still friends. He's one of my longest standing friends. And after a year, I got bored again because it was just like business as usual. And I'm curious. I love to start things. I love to invent. I love to have a vision. I love to move forward, right? And if things keep repeating themselves, I'm kind of getting bored. So I was like, oh, I'm doing the same things every day. Time to move. And then a client of his, he knew her for about 20 years, and she was a very clever and very good entrepreneur. She was a lesbian woman, and she was kind of my first mentor. And she came in, and it was very late in the evening. And I remember I was still there because I wanted to, do counting the cash, doing nice things you do in a shop, right? And just, clear everything up. And so she came in, she was the last customer that day, and we just got into talk. And she was like, wow, what have you been done for like in previous jobs? And I was telling her I had that 3 years training, and she was like, oh, I did that too, just with another employer. But she knew what you have, that you have to work like crazy for 3 years because you essentially have the teachings, but you have to work eight hours a day as well. So you kind of have two hats, and you change them around all the time. And she was like, wow, you can really work. I know that. And you're so creative. And why don't you come and visit me? I have a big agency, and I really want to introduce you and just show you around, and maybe you like it. And so she invited me. I got there. It was a beautiful loft. It was very, at that time, it was the first. Now everyone has it, these huge spaces where you had the open space and you can move around and sit where you want. And it was awesome. It was so beautiful. And she had a club as well, and it was it was the first club where gay people, lesbian people, heterosexual people, drag, everyone was mixing there, and that wasn't usual at that time. The
Yeah,
gay
I
people
would say.
stayed together, the lesbian people stayed together, the heterosexual people stayed together. They did mix, but they did there. And
Awesome.
so it was quite a cool place to be. And she was like, yeah, I restructured the team, and I want to have a new department. It's called Creative Lab, and you're going to be the director. And I was like, well, never done that. And as I mentioned, she was really my first mentor, and she always put some shoes in front of me that were two sizes too big for me. And it was overwhelming for me, but she believed in me more than I believed in myself. And she always believed I would grow into these shoes. And I did. And, 2, 3 months down the line, I was doing international events. I never did that before. I had no clue what I was doing. But I don't know if you know Pippi Langstrumpf, the girl with the red. Do you know that? It's from Astrid Lindgren. I don't know if you have in Hong Kong. If you're not, I will share it afterwards. It's a
Okay.
true series, and she's a real heroine for every woman, really, around the globe. And she has a saying, a quote that I really love, and she says, "I never done that before, so I don't have the slightest doubt that it's going to be fantastic." And I was kind of just rolling with it, and I was trusting that it's gonna be okay. But of course, I was afraid. I was so afraid. I had no idea what I was doing. I never had that kind of budgets. I never had this kind of, big, we had like 250 people, and they were all from, the stock exchange, and they were coming from all over the world. And I had no idea. But it was a beautiful event. And that kind of kicked it off. And I did a lot of that. I did a roadshow afterwards in 5 different countries, and I learned so much during that time. But I was working like crazy. I was the first in. I was the last out. I got severe migraine headaches. I it was it was exhausting. I was actually working more than the owners of the agency. And when I recognized that, I was like, well, maybe I should be self employed. Maybe I should just do that for myself and not for anyone else. So that was the point where I was like, okay, I'm going to have my own agency. I can do that for myself. And this is where I kind of, broke free from being employed. And everyone was cheering me. Like my parents were like, yeah, we knew you're going to be self-employed all the time. You have that kind of feeling for business, and you have that. I wanted to be free. I still want to be free. Like freedom is one of my highest values, and it is really something I'm striving for. And I always did. I mean, I was like that as a child. With 3 years, I was yelling, I want my freedom, right? Still.
Yes. So do you have that on your bumper sticker?
My bumper sticker is things are always working out for me. And
Wow. It's
I'm
like that
telling,
Indian movie. I forgot what it is called. All is well.
yeah, and
I
things are
was
always working out for me. And even if it don't looks like they're working out, they're still working out. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Dominique. We
Thank
understand
you,
you have
Dominic. Mwah,
the
mwah.
lovely presents you have given us. Thank you. And so, well, how old were you? Were you married at that point when this big shift came about?
Mm, let me think. It was around 2000 when the major shifts kind of happened. From 99 to 2000, everything kind of changed. And then I was at the agency, I think, from 2001 until 2003. And then then came my self-employment, and I was far away from being married at that point. I was like 5 years single straight, and I was convinced no one's gonna ever marry me. When I was a child, I was like always, oh, when I'm 30, I'm gonna be married, and I'm gonna have the whole thing with the car and the kids and the backyard. Mm,
Mm.
mm-mm. Nope.
So that was social conditioning, right? Loud and clear.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I'm looking back, I have to laugh. But at that time, it was my expectation for myself, and it was that social expectation. And then when you come to like family, whatever parties, everyone, after they stopped asking me what I want to be, and no one even got what I was doing when I was telling them, okay, I'm a project manager and I'm working at a consulting and events agency. And, remember 500 people in that village, they were like, what? They didn't have a clue what
Mm.
I was doing. They had no idea. And they couldn't tell each other. And this was the worst for my grandmother, because when the people in the shop asked her, like, and how's Tina doing? And she was like, ah, she moved to Frankfurt, which was, something really no one did move to Frankfurt. So this was exotic already.
So
But
you're
then,
saying that this is not just some movie little clip. It happened in real life for you because we see that in
absolutely,
movies all the time, right?
absolutely, that happened. Everything of that happened. And then, at when I got self-employed, I had my own agency. It's in Germany, it was called the Glücksbringer, the bringers of luck. And I
Wow.
used yeah, and it was such a fun time. And I was using a four-leaf clover. I even had a bracelet made with a four-leaf clover, and I still have it. And it says love, luck, faith, and something else. I have to look it up because I didn't wear it for such a long time. But I was moving in there, and everything just happened. Like, my clients came to me. Sven Feth, who is one of the most renowned DJs in the world, was calling me. And you may know him. He's very popular in Asia. He's well among his 50s now, but he's still one of the most global, celebrated DJs in the world. He was calling me and was like, "Hi, this is Sven Feth." And I was like, and he has a very distinct voice. So I really, I was like, it's him, he's calling me. And he was like, yeah, I'm going to open up a club, and I heard you are the one. If I want to do a gay party, I have to call you. And I was like, yeah.
Wow.
Actually, yeah,
You were
that's a
pretty
good
well.
idea.
You were really well branded by then.
Hmm? Say it again.
People knew you as a brand by then already.
Yeah,
Yes.
people, yeah, they kind of knew. They knew I was good at throwing parties. I was really good at organizing events. I was good at marketing, and I was good at PR. I was really good at copywriting. So people knew that, and it kind of got around. But Frankfurt is not that of a big city. The first 10 years you feel like an alien, but after you pass the first 10 years, you kind of know everyone. It's like a big family. It takes you a little bit to get in, but if you're in for your lifetime. So yeah, this was fun. And then I was moving into a really narcissistic relationship that taught me a whole lot of things, a whole lot of things. And I kind of revisited my neediness as a child, that, like, begging for, please love me, please
Mm.
love me, and I was going above and beyond to get that love. And of course, he wasn't able to give it at all. I mean, if you choose that kind of relationship, you are not able to give. But it took me years and years and years to learn that.
So would you
Yeah,
say this relationship, did you feel like you brought that about actively? You wanted this to happen and you worked really hard to get it? Or it just kind of blindsided you. You know
I
what I mean?
wanted I wanted it so much to work out, you know, after 5 years waiting for the man, and there he came, and he was very handsome, and he was successful, and he had all this. But there were warning signs just like very early in the beginning. And I shouldn't have ignored them, but I did because I really wanted to make that happen. And I really wanted to work. And I really wanted to have that love story. I really wanted it. And, when you're ignoring these signs and then you're looking back and like you knew it. Like if you were really honest with yourself, you knew it. You knew this wouldn't work out and this guy could really hurt you, and he did. But he made me so much stronger because the day when I decided this is it, no more, and I'm going to stop this, I remember it like if it was yesterday. He was picking me up and we were about to go to breakfast. And it was raining that day. You had like clouds everywhere. It was raining, raining, raining. He was picking me up. I was going into the car, and he was really good in, and I feel that very strongly if someone's kind of emitting that bad vibe frequency, and he could be like a black hole. He could, make this like you have if you have the octopus and he puts out this ink. You know what I mean? It was infectious. It was infectious, and I was getting into the car, and before I got into the car, I was really in a good mood. But I got into the car, and I was like, oh, this feels so heavy. This feels like a burden. This is not fun at all. And we were going to that breakfast, and during the breakfast, suddenly it hit me. I was like, it's going to end now, like now. And I was taking out the keys to his apartment, and I was handing it over to him. And I was saying, I want my keys back too. And this is it. And he wasn't prepared for that at all. He was, and dropping the coffee. And we've been visiting that breakfast cafe a lot. So the guy who was the waiter, he knew us, and he was kind of watching us, what was going on. And then he made it was kind of a bit of a drama, but he was throwing just some money on the table, and off he went. And then I was sitting there alone, and I swear to you, the clouds parted. And
Like in a movie.
clouds parted, and a single ray of sun, it was shining directly into my face. And when I was just closing my eyes, and I was sitting there, and I was like, this was like God telling me, well done. And then I opened my eyes, and just right in front of me was that waiter. And he had a huge glass of champagne on ice. And he was handing it over to me, and he was saying, congratulations. And I was like, yeah, I did the right thing. I did the right thing. And yeah,
So
that
that was one
ended.
huge obstacle that you overcame.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we always talk a lot about how we have to have a balanced life, right?
Hmm.
We're not just really giving too much energy or time in one aspect like career or maybe wealth acquirement, financial wealth. We
Hmm.
also have to have physical wealth, mental health, and all that. So that was a kind of a triumphant kind of moment for you. Now,
Hmm.
at that, did this kind of, because when you're out of this kind of a dysfunctional relationship,
Hmm.
you will regain your joy and you will regain your vitality, right? And also maybe some pride, perhaps. So
Absolutely.
did that actually also help did it help your career in some ways?
Yes. it was a very empowering experience, even though it was really painful. And, the real work was afterwards. It's not just the experience, right? It's your reflection on the experience. And if you, and then your detachment from the pain. And then comes wisdom, right? You have to kind of move past the knowledge and turn it into wisdom. It's like the base metal, the pain is the base metal, and you turn it into gold, right? So this was a turning point for me, because I finally realized I picked these men. I'm not a victim to these men. I felt like a victim, but I wasn't. And when I found that one out, that it's me not being ready to really, dive into a relationship, that was a game changer for me. And this was a game changer in relationships too, because like shortly after that, I met a man that was ready to have children, that was ready to marry me. I mean, we're divorced now. But still, there was that this was my decision, not his decision. But then I attracted a different kind of man, because I was, it switched inside of me, and I was ready to, let something else come into my life. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so you are then more able to focus on, at that moment of your life where you, now that you have a better kind of a relationship with yourself, right? Like you were just saying to us all, when we grow out of these dysfunctional relationships and we have this self growth,
Mm.
right? Evolution. um all of a sudden your consciousness is just at a different level,
Mm-mm.
right?
Yes.
So did you do anything consciously to gear your training? Because you are a trainer, right? So tell us a little more about all these amazing things that you're able to do professionally.
Yes. I mean, I was always, I think I, with around 33, I really had a breakthrough experience that guided me ultimately on my spiritual path. Give me a second. I just have to. Mili, könntet ihr das später machen? Oder leiser? Danke. Okay, I'm back.
So,
With like 33, I had this, when I was burned out at the agency, I had this migraine headaches. I had to take a taxi back home because I couldn't drive anymore. It was really bad. And then I decided to start with yoga. And then I decided to become a yoga teacher. And then I had kind of a spiritual breakthrough experience that was so, it changed me from the inside. It was like, you can literally like imagine you have a rush of energy entering your head like here, and it was running through my body. I was shivering like that because the energy was so high. And when it happened, it took like for 1.5 hours maybe. And in these 1.5 hours, I understood the whole universe. It was like I could look through the eyes of God or the goddess or whatever you would, the universe. It doesn't matter what label you put on. And this, of course, changed me forever, because this was like, oh, wow, there's so much more to life. And I wanted to learn it all. And then I learned the language of color, which I'm still learning. Like for over 17 years now, I'm studying color. I studied numerology, astrology, the tree of life. I'm an absolute nerd on the tree of life. Then I became a Kumnia practitioner, which is a special kind of energy massage. I studied the hierarchy of angels, the ascended masters, everything. I read everything about that, and like in the past 17 years, I was putting more time and energy and money and interest into the metaphysical world than into my main job. And I was really, crushing it at the job as well. But this was always something, and this was such an aha for me, because in school I wasn't interested what they were teaching, but I was interested in that kind of knowledge. I couldn't learn enough of it. And I will be a lifelong student, and I just love it. The more I know, the better it gets. Yeah, and the last edition was the elite mentorship trainer. I was in a group mentoring with Peter Sage. He's been living in Hong Kong actually for a few years, and he's quite well known in Asia as well. He's actually coming from the UK, and he's living in Tenerife now, and he's considered one of the number one experts in human behavior.
Mm,
And he has kind of developed it over 30 years. He's been a master trainer for Tony Robbins for over 10 years. And he's been in personal growth for over 30 years. And he kind of condensed all the knowledge he had and all the things where he was like, this stuff is really working. He kind of condensed it into a 6-month program. And this was another major game changer for me, another major catalyst to step out of, out of every comfort zone I have, actually. And
wow.
yeah, it changed everything. It changed everything for me. This was really, and I mean, this after 17 years, when I look back, it was like getting all the loose ends together and
Mm,
finally said, that makes sense. Because
totally.
before it didn't make sense. I had a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and then I was there, and then I was doing this, and I felt like a chameleon, but it never made sense. It didn't make sense at all. And now it finally everything comes together like a sweet puzzle, and it's just delicious to see it, fall into place and to really, I mean, we hear that so often, right? That it's about the journey and not about the destination. But if you really feel that in your own life, and if you see that it's really about, it's not about getting somewhere. We are all conditioned to get somewhere, to achieve something, to get that degree, to get that job, to get that title, to get the zeros on your bank account. And then, if you have your first million, you start worrying about your first million, need you to have your next million, and then you're still not feeling good. And finding that out to be okay, that there will always be questions, and stay with the question, and stay with the quest, and be happy on the quest. And then it really starts to begin, and you really have fun, because you don't need anything from the external anymore.
From the things that you've been sharing with us, I felt like it really did make a lot of sense that that awakening and you getting to know all these masters and knowing this kind of a level of conscious work, because you have been a chameleon all your life and you have been very open, and that's
Mhm.
why you probably, this is exactly why you couldn't keep staying in one job for too long
Mhm.
because of course you were not necessarily right in the right path, but there isn't a right or wrong anyway because they all like come together as a big puzzle, right?
Absolutely.
Like a
Mhm.
mosaic of life. One of our other previous guests, my dear friend Janice, calls it the mosaic of life, and your mosaic is full of colors and wonderful special experiences because you have such a high intuition.
Mm.
So now I would love to ask you so many questions about like this highly sensitive person and the sentient things, but we only have about 10 more minutes. So would you like to share with us, say, in this whole process, right?
Mhm.
Since you start this journey of awakening,
Mhm.
did you have learn or accumulate some top
Mhm.
tools that you tend to go
Yes.
to put you in the highest energetic level?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Um, th- you know, Happiness is something you make. It is not something that comes from the outside. This is what people, but 95% of people get wrong. They like, if this and that happens, then I'll be happy. but actually it's working the other way round. And if you can really grasp that, if you can really get your head around this, that happiness is an inside job. You create happiness and then the good things come, because we live in a vibrational universe. And this is not woo woo, this is quantum physics, right? This is quantum physics. Everything vibrates at a certain frequency. Your mobile phone is a frequency. Your mobile phone number is a frequency, right? So your thoughts have a frequency and your feelings have a frequency. And you can never ever control any external circumstance, but you can always control how you respond. And I say respond, not react, because this is a difference. You respond and you choose your response. But to do that, you have to be very disciplined. You have to practice this. It's like going to the gym. And you normally we don't train that muscle, that consciousness muscle, that awareness muscle. And we can train it as any muscle you can train in the gym, right? But we rarely do it. And the more happiness you can come up with from inside, the more it's you're like a magnet, and you get all that happiness drawn to you. And it's law. It's just happening. It's not something you have to believe in. I mean, you do it anyway, but the question is, are you really tuning your broadcast to what you want to attract, or do you send out a little bit of everything, and so what you get back is a little bit of everything? So
Mm.
this is really a thing. I could go for hours, but we just have, as you said, a few more minutes. So
I love this so much. Like, we have intentions, and I'm sure the people who watch this channel or this podcast, they have the knowledge already. But are we really constantly monitoring ourselves, right? If we are really totally aligned, or we go off course, because it's
right.
not hard to go off course,
It
like you
is
said.
so easy to go, of course, because we are conditioned, we are programmed. Our brain is actually a programmed machine. And the thing is, if you don't know what you don't know. So the
Hmm.
program kind of happens on the go. Your parents program you, your teacher program you, your society programs you, your friends, your partners, your kids, everyone is kind of putting a program in there, and your brain loves to automate. So you're on autopilot, and you're always running the same circuits in your brain. And if you don't break them, they are running on their own. It's like, remember when you first started driving a car, how difficult that was? You had,
Yeah.
oh, okay, now I have to do this, and then I have to do that, and I have to watch the street. And, the teacher next to you was yelling at you. You had all these things, and now you're just getting into the car, and it happens on autopilot. You don't
Yeah.
even think about it anymore. You're just driving, you commute to work, or you get your kids from school. You don't think about it anymore. And
Totally.
the same with everything. And if you have that deeply ingrained belief, you're not enough, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not whatever enough, this is kind of distorting your frequency. And even if you're telling yourself all day, every day, that you are just wonderful and the most wonderful and smart woman alive, you still have this distortion that is coming from your subconscious mind. And it's sending and broadcasting all the time. And
So,
you have to tune that down.
so Tina, what do you do to stay happy?
I do yoga. I actually, I really, I'm really a disciplined person. I'm getting up at 5 a.m. I
Wow.
meditate for an hour. I journal. I do yoga like almost every day. I remind myself like frequently during the day. I sit down with intention, 1 minute, and I'm tuning into my heart, and I bring up an elevated emotion to elevate my system, because your cells pick up that frequency and they broadcast it, and you have to do it as much as you can. I do vision boards, I do the whole thing. I do visualizations, and I always learn. I'm always in personal development courses. I always, I'm putting in the work, and I love it. And I'm teaching to elite mentorship forums, so I'm always going through the modules again. And I'm a work in progress, like everyone is.
I love your humility. I mean, you have so many tools at your disposal. So yoga, what do you advise people who are not able to learn or practice yoga consistently at the beginning?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because I remember sometimes you really are not having the right body shape or your joints are hurting, right?
Hmm. Hmm. You can start, don't expect yourself to, win the Olympic Games from day one. It is not going to happen, and it's not what yoga is about at all. Yoga is about bringing you back into balance. And
Ah,
it doesn't matter how your body shape looks, and it doesn't matter how the posture looks. It's not even about the pose. It's about, I mean, the pose is just an expression to bring in a certain quality. Like, for example, if you're doing a forward bend or a forward fold, this is about surrender. And it is teaching in surrendering, in not wanting anything, in not achieving, you want to reach your feet, or you want to put your nose to your knees, or whatever, you want to get into the pose. It's not working. One of my wisest yoga teachers, she always said, a good forward bend takes you 7 years, so don't rush it.
wow.
And, it's not about the pose. So have grace with yourself. It doesn't matter. What matters is you show up, you try, and in
Mm,
trying, you're building new brain connections, and it will be better next time. Or next time, or next time, or next time. But you will have progress. And it's about showing it, like with everything in life. Do it consistently. You don't have to do 1.5 hours a day. You can do 10 minutes or 5 minutes, but do it consistently and commit to yourself that you will do it, because showing up for yourself is the ultimate way to tell the universe, hey, I'm worthy. I'm showing up for myself, and I'm important enough to do it. I may not do it perfectly, but it doesn't matter. No one's watching except you. And show and tell, and, you know, give that feeling to yourself that you matter and that you're important.
I love that. It is not about showing off or even seeing what it looks like, but the attitude and the commitment to your well-being and your worthiness. I mean,
Absolutely.
that is such a life skill. Remember when we met, right? You were
Mhm.
the expert on the stage talking about neuroscience. I love that topic so much. You opened the Education 2.0 conference. You were one of the visionaries. And when it came to my talk, we were all talking about life skills and that not giving up and finding a way to inspire oneself, right? Like the creativity that you have shared with us from the get-go or the beginning of the show. Sometimes it's really just even painting a picture and staring at that picture, right? Because you and I talked about color, the
Yeah.
psychology of color and painting. You told me you were going to do an exercise with me. Can you share with the audience what it is? Painting the color with the
Oh
use.
yeah, the picture tapping. The picture tapping. We have to meet extra for that, but we can do a group tapping actually. If people
Yeah,
are
share
interested,
with
we can
us
do it
what.
as a group. I'm sure you know about tapping, like emotional freedom technique. I think this is quite well known. And there's another like current in the EFT scene, and it's called picture tapping. And picture tapping is so 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 powerful because you combine calming down your nervous system, accessing the subconscious, and let it speak to you through pictures. And don't worry, you don't have to be Picasso, it's just doodling. It's just you have 1 minute. So it's not going to be the next Van Gogh. It's just something that comes out of your subconscious mind and you don't filter it. And you do that several times, and you can do it on a certain topic. So if you have a question, it can be a very general or a specific question where you want an intuitive answer and you can't access it because your mind's going round and you're in the linear thinking process and you want to access the right brain. And it's hard for most of the people because they don't practice it enough. So this is a good thing to access the subconscious and get a really clear answer on your question or your problem. Yeah.
I can't wait to do that with you. And if anyone is watching, and if you are also like fascinated by this, make sure you reach out to Tina. Now, Tina, before we go to our last bit, how can people reach you?
Oh, you can check in my homepage. It's feelingunlimited.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, Tina Mara Linne, like my name is saying here. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. Just type in my name or visit me on my homepage. And I'm delighted to, connect with you. I always love meeting people, and connecting is one of the things I enjoy most in life.
Yes,
Learning.
yes. Connection, that love, that connection. She has an endless flow of that. Okay, everyone. Now, last bit. I know you don't want her to stop. Me neither, but at some point. So, can you share with us one inspirational quote or a song or a book that you believe can help our all our women sisters around the world?
One quote that
You
it's the first that comes to my mind just right now. I mean, I have a lot of quotes I love, but this is the first that came. So I will go with the first one. And
okay?
it's from Peter Sage, actually. And he says, knowing and not doing is the same as not knowing.
Wait, say.
Ah, knowing, not doing is the same as not knowing. Oh.
Mm.
Yes.
Knowing not doing is the same
Thing
as.
is not knowing. It's like he always says, that's data for later, which means no.
I love it. Data related.
He's like, oh, I do that someday. You never do it.
Oh my God, procrastination. When we were prepping for the show, right? One of the reasons why I started this particular podcast is that you guys can help me fix my perfectionism. And
Mm,
this is so good. Knowing, not doing is the same as not
not knowing.
knowing. Yeah, and
Mhm.
we don't like to admit we don't know. So let's
Mhm.
correct, right? Let's reprogram our brain. And bit by bit in our can-feel training, 1% per day is already a big win. Because
Yeah,
most people, they stall month after month.
it's adding up. It's adding up. And if it's just 1%, I mean, you can do 1%. Everyone can do 1% better than yesterday, or 1% more action, or 1% more communication, or whatever you want to reach. You know,
Yeah.
it adds up. It has a huge power, that compounding, if you do something consistently. Absolutely. And the song I really love at the moment is Grateful.
Oh.
Grateful. Connor
Mm,
Price. And he's
okay.
singing, I woke up feeling grateful. Grateful. It is so nice. And I'm singing it in the morning because it gets me in a good mood.
Yeah.
And yeah, then Daydream. Do you know that song by Lily Miola?
If I hear the tune, yes, probably.
Don't quit your daydream. It's your life that you're making. It's so beautiful. And she says, you have to fall for a minute before you can fly.
Mm.
That really gives me goosebumps. But
Oh,
because
yeah.
we all know that, right? That moment when you're falling and you don't know where the ground's going to be, or if you grow your wings in time, or if there's going to be a ground at all, or if you're going to be, rescued by some divine, being, whatever. I love that. But before you can fly, you have to fall for a minute before you can fly. Yeah.
I love that. I want my teenage students to all start singing that.
Yeah. Yeah,
No,
check it out. It's a beautiful song. It's
no
beautiful.
kidding.
They will love it. She's quite young, so I think it will sit good with them.
What about books? Quickly.
I mean, I'm at
Romantic
the
book.
moment, I'm really fascinated by the magic path of intuition because of, as an intuitive, it of course talked to me. It's quite an old book. It's from 1925 or something. And
Oh.
yeah, I'm like rereading it now for the third or fourth time because there's so much in it. It's a small book. It's just 1 hour 20 or something as an audiobook. And I'm writing and writing and writing. And
Mm,
I love it. So if you are an intuitive or not, it is really, I mean, it's a small book. It's just 1.5 hours and you're done.
wow.
And I love all books by Dr. Joe Dispenza because, I love neuroscience. I love to learn how the brain's working and how it is, connected with the emotions. This is really something that fascinates me. Um, and then I've been just reading The Invisible Woman. This is really interesting. It's exposing the gender gap in data because women are non-existent in data that is used to build cars, build mobile phones, medicine. They just using men to accumulate data, and women are non-existent. And that book was really like, wow. Yeah. Hmm.
I
The
was going to, yeah, echo you with wow.
Mhm.
Unbelievable.
Invisible Book. I read it on my way to Dubai and back. I bought it on the airport because really it was like on display there, and I was like, wow, that one's gonna be great. That's good for a 6 hours flight and back. And I loved it, and I'm still reading it because it's very dense, of course, much data in there, but it's a great read, and it's I think it's you know very valuable knowledge as a woman that you're kind of non-existent in.
Well, and if that is the truth, we have to change it. And it's our
Absolutely.
responsibility to change the narrative. We have, in a way, brought that to ourselves,
Couldn't
right?
agree more. Absolutely.
Well,
We are the ones we've been waiting for, right?
that's okay. We let go of the past and we focus on our now and we get to work for our future. Feel our future and is filled with colors like Tina is. And so I hope that everyone has gotten a great inspiration from Tina tonight or today, depending on where you are.
Mhm.
So, Tina, I look forward to our next interaction. It's always colorful, full of joy, full of energy. I am so fortunate to have made a new friend with you. And I'm so glad that you have given us your precious time and share all your knowledge and life experiences with us on this platform and all the other amazing women platforms. So thank you again. And for anyone who has been tuning in from wherever you are or later on that you will tune in, please remember to look up Tina on LinkedIn and connect with her. Okay. So I bid you farewell and Auf Wiedersehen. And I want your whole family to have a great day today. And so do you, everyone else, have a great day wherever you are. Thank you again. Goodbye now.
Thank you so much. It was a
Love.
pleasure to be here. Thank you for listening. Bye
Thank,
bye.
thank you, Camilla, who has just said thanks to us too. Thank you,
Oh,
Camilla.
Camilla.
Bye. Yes, Camilla. Bye.